Hello, everyone, and welcome to Really Old Movies. I'm your host, Harrison Scullin, and today I'll be discussing The Iron Horse from 1924, directed by John Ford. And so, let me get into my thoughts on this film overall. But before I start that, so just some backstory here. So, The Iron Horse was basically the breakthrough film for John Ford. This is the movie that kind of started his career, and also the career of many other actors, such as a good old um, Clark Gable. Goodness gracious, couldn't think of Clark Gable's name. He's very hard to see, though. You have to really pay attention to find him, but he's in this movie. And yeah, what's cool about it is it's about the Transcontinental Railroad, where the United States, we created a railroad to cross the entire country from, the West Coast to the East Coast. And the two companies, the Central Pacific and the Union, I think it was Union Pacific, those two different railroads were kind of converging together to meet in the middle. And I've always found that to be a very interesting piece of history. So I was very eager and excited to check out a film about it. So now we'll get into my thoughts on it. And so, the plot. So the plot, I gave it a 3 out of 5. And here's why. I love this history. Like I was mentioning, I was so eager and excited to check it out. I mean, look at that poster there on the left. I love that art style. But I'll be honest, the most exciting parts were the couple fight scenes between the Indians and people on the train, and just the cool action with that as well. And also the fight at the end with Davy and the two-fingered man. That's about the most exciting parts of the film for me. Everything else kind of dragged on a bit. I mean, I thought it was cool, seeing Abraham Lincoln, an actor playing him and whatnot. I just wish it was more interesting, and I wish it was a lot shorter. It's 2.5 hours, and I felt it dragged on a bit, and I was very disappointed. It's just hard for me to sit through a 2.5 hour silent film. I'll be honest with that. It's very tough to do. So, and I'll get into that in my overall, but yeah, that's why I gave the plot a 3 out of 5. Okay, let's move on to the acting. Okay, so the acting, I also gave it a 3. I thought it was typical, average, silent film acting. I didn't really connect with any of the characters, which is tough because when you have a movie like this, it's a silent film, 2.5 hours, you want to have characters you really, really want to connect with. And Davy, the main guy, pictured on the left there, and I forgot his girl's name, but I thought it was an interesting story, him, fighting the two-fingered man dressed up as a Cheyenne Indian, and I believe it was his dad who wanted to do the railroad to begin with. So that, from that perspective, it was cool, but I don't know, I just felt I couldn't connect with any of the characters. But the costumes were cool, the set design was cool, all of that was cool. All that was missing was the character, the connection. And this being one of John Ford's earliest films, you definitely see that later on with films like The Searchers, Stagecoach, and other films like that. I think, no, Howard Hawks did Rio Bravo, but in his later westerns, it got better. But that's why I gave the acting a 3 out of 5. All right, let's move on to directing. Speaking of John Ford. So I gave it a 3, I'll be honest. I thought John Ford was great at capturing the West and how realistic this feels, and the set design. I thought that was cool. All that was missing were characters. I wish I could connect with them. And I love the big scale of this, but this happens time and time again, even nowadays, where a big scoped movie, great cinematography, great special effects, the characters are dull. I'm sorry, but I felt the case here. And so that's why I gave it a 3 out of 5. Okay, let's move on to what I think is the highlight of the film, the cinematography and special effects. 4 out of 5. It was incredible, absolutely beautiful. I love the scenes on location. 5 out of 5. Or did I give it a 4? I'm sorry, I gave it a 5 out of 5. I loved it. It was beautifully, beautifully put together. What I thought was awesome was, so How do you recreate a scene of characters, building a railroad, right? They build a railroad. I don't know how long it was, or to the extent how much they really put one together, but they were laying out logs and or what are they called? Railroads and railroad ties and all that. So it seemed like they were really building one. uh, it was incredible looking, very epic, grand scale film. You could definitely see he had an eye for it for sure. I mean, that's him on the right there at the pipe. So awesome. All right, let's move on to music. So the version I watched did have the original score, so I am able to rank it this time. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I thought it was epic. It set the tone very well. Just look at that shot there, man. It's one of the best shots in the movie. Yeah, it really set the tone. It was very big and really set the stage. I really liked it. 4 out of 5. Okay, so my overall score is a 3.6 out of 5, which is a 72% on Criticless. And now let me break down my Criticless score. There's no graphic language, as in regards to violence. There's some fighting between other railroad workers and with the Indians. That's about it, though. And nothing super graphic or anything like that. Okay, for nudity, sexual content, kissing, that's about it. Political bias, none. Family friendly? Yeah, I think kids will be bored, though. I don't think you should show this to little kids. They might not get it or be entertained by it. And kind of talking about that, entertainment value-wise, I'm not going to lie, I was bored. It's a 2.5-hour movie, which, can, if done right, is great, especially if you like the characters, but I don't really connect with anybody. So it made it a challenge to watch the 2.5 hours. The fighting was interesting, and I liked that, and it was awesome. But at the very end of the movie, and maybe even throughout, they had the 2 real trains from when the Continental Railroad was finally finished with the Golden Pike and whatnot. They had the actual trains there, which I think is really cool, considering how this movie only came out, 60, 50, 60 years after those events. It's pretty impressive. So I was entertained in that way, but not storyline wise. All right, and so with all of that, would I recommend this movie? I think just for history buffs, just to see what the sentiment was and what perception of the Continental Railroad was at the time, and I mean, I don't know if anyone in the cast actually worked on it, but I wouldn't doubt it. There would definitely be people who were alive then in the movie. So I think from that perspective, it's important to see. And also just to see the grand scope and camera work of John Ford, especially if you're a fan of his work. But I'll be honest, the average viewer, I don't think will get as much out of it as a history fan or a John Ford fan, that sort of thing. But I could be wrong. I don't know. It's a tough sell. And what I love, though, is being kind of the demographic for this movie. I like learning about just the brutality of all of it, the sacrifice, and just the great accomplishment and magnificence of this railroad. I feel like doesn't get enough attention and talked about enough. And it wasn't pretty. It's not a pretty history, but I still think it's worth talking about and worth celebrating. I mean, just the engineering of it alone, of having such a long railway connecting the 2 sides of the continent, or rather the country, it's just incredible. It changed technology forever. It changed a lot of things in the world, America especially, but definitely the world forever. So I appreciate it from that perspective. And so with that, though, those are my thoughts on the Iron Horse from 1924, and that concludes today's movie review.